Extroverted sensing. It's a cognitive function. But what really is it? Well, anytime we talk about extroverted sensing, we're discussing a relationship between four different things: extroverted sensing, extroverted intuition, introverted intuition, and introverted sensing. So, to distinguish extroverted sensing from some other manner of paying attention is to describe it in terms of its relationship with one of those other functions. So, for example, if I'm an extroverted sensing dominant person, then that means if we were to frame the issue of extroverted sensing as one of opportunism, then that means that as an extroverted sensing first person, I'm prioritizing new opportunities over exactly the right execution of an existing opportunity that I'm exploiting. Whereas if I'm an NI-DOM, on the other hand, on that subject sort of frame of reference, then I'm prioritizing getting the execution of the given opportunity being exploited exactly right. You can envision this as expressing in a hunting situation as an NI person who's prioritizing the NI manner of attention over the SE manner of attention, waiting for this one deer that they've spotted to come close to them and ignoring alternate deers who may prove tempting targets as well. In other words, they're not going to change horses in midstream. They've already figured out how this one deer's pattern of behavior is likely to play out. They've chosen that deer for a reason, and now they need to allow that deer's behavior to play out as they've intuited, such that they can shoot the arrow at the right time. In contrast, the SE person, seeing these new deers walking by that might be better opportunities, may choose to seize upon one of those, thereby seeming to abandon the existing plans. This is why sometimes people can find it confusing or contradictory to say that SE is both about opportunism and about follow-through. But of course, follow-through is generally thought of as a fairly long-term thing, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. Right now I'm following through on my thoughts of making this video, and it's not going to take more than 3 minutes to do it. Now, if we look at extroverted sensing in terms of its relationship with extroverted intuition, for an extroverted sensing DOM, what that means is that in order to maximally be opportunistic, they need to seize upon things that aren't immediately part of the identity of the thing. In other words, there has to be some novel aspect to their framing of an opportunity for it to likely be an opportunity that they can exploit to the exclusion of others. If it doesn't require some sort of intuition, then probably it's already been exploited. Now, however, once that intuitive movement from what's right before somebody into how that thing proves to be an opportunity for them, they don't need further intuition, certainly not of the extroverted kind, which is why to say that you're an extroverted sensing dominant means that you have 8th slot, quote-unquote, NE. If we describe extroverted sensing in terms of its relationship to SI, well, there we go back to the follow-through point. If we were to consider the SI DOM maximally follow-through-ish on the end of follow-through to opportunism, then we'd see that it applies that same sort of follow-through-iness that NI does, but instead of on a singular instance, it applies it across instances. In other words, I'm not going to make a new plan because I haven't seen the last plan through to fruition yet. The extent to which, of course, this proves to be the case in any given SI DOM, ST DOM, etc., also links in, of course, to their other functions. But regardless, in any instance, what we see is that describing extroverted sensing requires us to describe it in its relation to these other ideas. That to the extent the idea of an extroverted sensor being opportunistic and or engaging in follow-through has meaning, it needs to link to deficits in other areas, such that I've described that the extroverted intuition of an extroverted sensor is going to be minimally applied in order to maximize the effectiveness of being an extroverted sensor. And to the extent that the person is truly an extroverted sensor, it's limited in its scope beyond that, because that's what it means to be an extroverted sensor. So, I hope this clarifies the cognitive function extroverted sensing some for you. And although it's longer than I anticipated, I still seem to have gotten it under 5 minutes, which isn't too bad.